session meeting is called to order at 5:15 p.m. Does anyone wish to make a comment? Please limit comments to 3 minutes. We will have a timer on the screen for your reference. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Seeing none logged in yet.
Seeing none in person, public comments are closed. I will now turn the meeting over to Planning and Development Director Brian Chandler.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair, Acting Chair. And so, yes, just a quick overview of recent council cases. Hello. So 2 cases that went to council at the November 21st meeting. So we had the site plan for Lot to Lot there on South First Street. And as you know, it wasn't controversial here, it wasn't controversial at City Council, but just a quick recap of where that is. It's been several weeks since you all saw it. And of course, the site plan, and including the dumpster and propane tank locations, because we're learning as we go through this that those are the kind of questions that really need to get answered at the site plan stage. You don't address the trash pickup adequately, and that can change your site plan dramatically. So that was approved unanimously, no issues. And then even less controversial, because this is a plat, but the plat exception for South Point Phase 5 and went to council, as you all will probably remember, because of an exception of the thoroughfare plan for Case Road. This original preliminary plat included Case Road connecting to the loop, as you see there on the right. And the developer determined that that just was not feasible. I think it can be done, but just not economically feasible. There were even, some concerns by TxDOT of that ramp and just the slope, elevation, all that good stuff. So ultimately, we evaluated it and recommended approval because they had adequate access throughout the rest of the neighborhood in terms of street projection access points. So it went down from 4 access points to 3. And so there are the 4 from the preliminary plat, circling the change in the elimination of the Case Road with the Loomis Drive, essentially a cul-de-sac added in there. And that's all I have on those. Those are the only 2 cases that went to council on the 21st. And so if there are no questions about that, I wanted to also bring up a question. I'm sorry, we're kind of going out of order here, but then we'll get to tonight's agenda. But since we're talking about items that are in the director's report, and I think there have been questions about that, very good questions. So I think it's currently about 17 pages, and Tiffany puts those right behind the workshop agenda, just because the item, what is it, item 3, your typical number 2 on the agenda for receive and discuss the planning director's report, contain items for future meetings regarding subdivision plat zoning cases, conditional use permits, annexations, and proposed text amendments, if any, to the Unified Development Code. So it's kind of the catch-all to be able to discuss other projects, the other cases that you previously approved, and the director's report tries, the director's report isn't trying to do anything. Staff has put the director's report together to kind of track all the plat cases, including those that are administratively approved, just so you can see those. But the question is this something that you all use? Is this useful? Because it's a lot, quite frankly, a lot of work. And maybe there's a better way for us to track that and even change the language, something I would discuss with Kyle on how to, but just to make that that language number two a little broader for discussion so that you can ask those kind of questions if you've got specific ones. But it's really just a question of whether we still need the director's report. It was here when I started 11 years ago, and we just kept doing it because it was tradition. But at some point, you kind of ask the question: do we remember what the value is, and is it being used in that way? It's something we can keep, but if there isn't a lot of value to it, then save a lot of paper and staff work. So wanted to just throw that out there and see what you think. Especially Greg, since you've been, you're back after being on P and Z for a long time, and probably have a pretty good understanding as to whether that's was of value, and if so, is it still
I think it
value.
was a value, to see what was out there still or how many pending cases.
Yeah.
And I guess the question back to you is, what would you do if you did? Is this an organizational thing for you to help keep y'all on task of what you've got going, or not?
No, it does. It really doesn't help us, and so, but it's a tool for P and Z for the public. But at the same time, I'm not so sure that I've ever heard a question from the public about, hey, we saw this director's report in your P and Z packet from this date. Can you tell me about X? I mean,
Because these are all pending things that you've got out there, but you have those logged in a different way.
Yes, that is correct. And so it's really just a report that gets generated. And I don't honestly know enough about the mechanics of it. Tiffany or Tanisha, who used to put it together, in terms of how easy that is to, I think it's still pretty labor intensive, as opposed to just putting it in our MyGarmin online system and plugging in some dates and then the type of cases and then it generating a report. I think it seems like that should be possible, but I'm not sure that's exactly how this particular format works. Is that?
Case manager goes in there. Each case manager goes in and updates the report when we send it out for the staff report to be due. They go in and each case manager goes in and has to add their cases and take away whatever is not relevant anymore.
So it's not even a simple report that gets generated by just from a database. It's
like a Word document.
It's a lot.
Constantly just going in and updating.
So
I know I haven't been here long. I've looked at it and kind of wondered, like, what is this? So I have not yet found it useful.
Okay.
I would not miss it if it were gone.
Okay.
But like I said, I haven't been here long. I don't know if there'd be a case that I'd want to know, but I feel like, all the ongoing items are always in the meeting minutes anyway.
Right.
So it's not that hard to just look those up and find something.
Okay, that's helpful. And I think what we would also propose, if that's something that we are in agreement that we could eliminate, I think keeping the annexations in there, because that's something that you all don't see. And so that's a way for us to just track that, for you to see it. I can give periodic presentations on those if you like, but at least keeping that in there. And also the council decisions, so that goes back a little further than, just the previous council meeting. So you can kind of see a list of those, and I think that's easy. And that's only a couple pages as opposed to whatever we have right now, 17.
I
So-
think with you kind of revisiting recent items during this time kind of alleviates the need for
Mhm.
this as well. To
Okay.
bring up, hey, I just want to let you guys know, this is what happened since y'all decided on this. This was before you last time.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, very helpful to see where things are going, and we don't necessarily have to keep looking at something that's been there for 18 months.
Sure.
Just-
And even the council, even the council table, council decisions. If I'm going to present them, either way, all of that gets presented back to you. Is there any benefit of having a longer list of, oh yeah, that was 3 meetings ago, you know, so, I mean, so yeah, just,
Yeah, that's how I see it.
I don't see any, the
okay.
only thing I remember, it was just for an organizational thing
Mhm.
of, for the people that were before you.
Yeah.
And if you remember Kim, which was the assistant city
Mhm.
manager, I think it kind of started with her that
Yeah.
when she was overseeing the department while we were finding you. So I don't know why it kept going. That's all I remember.
I don't know. Sorry that it took me 11 years to ask the question. But you know, sometimes it's
Didn't want to say it, but
eventually,
Yeah.
eventually you say, okay, why are we doing this? Are we adding value? And,
Don't let anything
are we
else
just going
stop.
through the motions? And I think we've been going through the motions on it. So, if y'all are okay with just some head nods, no vote necessary, we would do away with that, except we would keep the annexations list. So I think that way your attention can be drawn to the, you know, big items that you aren't seeing, and you could ask those, and then we'd work with Kyle in terms of that, what that language, more, you know, broader language for number 2, just to, so that, hey, if you're driving to City Hall and you see something that's under construction and you can ask about it, and but we've covered it just so that, you know, that no one could say, well, hey, that wasn't on the agenda. Well, I mean, that's, you know, those kind of conversations are valuable too, just in terms
That
of
would
what's
probably
going
come
on.
in more handy as like, you know, seeing things that like never saw it on the agenda. What is that? Or
Sure.
What's going on? So, yeah.
Yeah. Does that sound okay, Kyle? Okay. All right. Now, Kevin, in backwards order, I'm a lefty after all. We do some things backwards. But tonight's agenda, and I know we've got applicants here, Mr. Josh Welch for the zoning case, and that is number 6. But I guess before we talk about number 6, we've got a consent agenda plat, Adams Island Commercial. And the only reason that that is on here is because it's taking one lot within that larger strip of development, Adams Lane, you know, between Adams Lane and West Adams and 317. So that's an Adams Island Commercial. Got Cornerstone um, auto repair there, and that whole strip. So that's the reason that's before you, and it's on consent because it's part of a larger plat that has come to this commission before. And of course, if you don't have questions now, you could always, when the consent agenda is up for vote, or just, yeah, that could be pulled in any time. All right. And then the zoning case that I was starting to talk about, 1900 North Pea Ridge Road. And there are some public members of the public that are here. They may be here to talk about that one because the other's a plat and there really isn't a lot to say about it. So presumably the neighbors have some input that they want to share with you. But so this is very similar to Mr. Welch's development to the north, but a larger scale. And that one, those are townhomes that are currently under construction. Similar approach, other than this also includes some neighborhood serving retail, some neighborhood service, 3 to 5 acres. You know, so this is consistent with a lot of plan developments that we have done, not only with Mr. Welch, but other developers to, you know, to set some parameters, but build in some flexibility because, you know, the market may change. There may not, you know, either for the residential, the green shown on the screen, or the retail, but, you know, so that there's a minimum, but there's also a maximum and just a range. And so in the green, the request is for a variety of lower density multifamily. And so that would, you know, include duplexes, townhomes, triplexes, fourplexes. But the applicant did want a little bit of flexibility with just multifamily rather than just fourplexes. And so what we agreed to on this, just like the townhomes to the north, is put a cap on the density. So 12 units per acre. And that way it addresses traffic but gives a little bit more flexibility in terms of, how that would develop, but then look at the perimeter and buffering and screening to address that. And so that's kind of in a nutshell, that's been our approach with this developer, but also with others in the past. So any specific questions about that now that that you'd like to discuss? And it is 5:30, isn't it? Geez, Chandler, talking too much. All right. Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brian. Do I have any volunteers? I'll ask for a volunteer for the invocation. Do I have a volunteer for the pledge? Thanks, Judy. All right, we will now hear from Tiffany Harrison in regards to affidavits.
Commissioners, for the record, no affidavits to abstain have been received for this meeting. Is this correct? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional business? If not, the work session is closed at 5:31 PM.
If you wish to speak, could you please sign in on the sign-in roster and I can grab real quick?